So I'm really pleased now to go on to our next speaker, which is Professor Lesley Paige, who is well known to many, many midwives. She is visiting professor in midwifery at King's College. She is an adjunct professor at UTS in Australia, at Griffith University, Australia, and an honorary research fellow at Oxford Brookes University. And people know her for her work internationally as an academic, an advocate, and activist for midwives, mothers, and babies, with more than 32 years midwifery experience. And she's done just about everything: clinical practice, management, leadership, academic, and policy work. She's practiced midwifery in the community, hospital, and home birth settings, and continues to practice in Oxfordshire. She's worked and lectured around the world. She was the first professor of midwifery in the UK at Thames Valley University in Queen Charlotte, and has also been the president of the Royal College of Midwives. She was also known as the member of the expert maternity group that wrote Writing Changing Childbirth, published in 1993, and was specialist advisor to the House of Commons subcommittee responsible for investigating the state of maternity services in 2003, and advisor to the King's Fund inquiry into the safety of maternity services in 2007 to 8. She's received an International Alumni Award in Sydney and an honorary DSc from University of West London in November 2013, and she was also made a Commander of the British Empire for Services to Midwifery in 2014. So welcome, Lesley. Thank you so much for stepping into the breach, and the floor is yours, or the screen is yours, whichever. Thank you.
So thank you very much indeed, and thank you for inviting me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here in this hour, very precious hour. And it's really wonderful to follow Maria Booker from Birthrights, because actually the development of human rights in maternity has been one of the most important developments in recent decades. And Birthrights, I think, has been hugely helpful to us in developing humanized birth. And Maria, you've given a really good framework for human rights, both the essential human rights and human rights that might be able to be modified, but some tests and rules for thinking about whether that modification should happen. My work over many years can be called the work of humanizing birth. And humanizing birth is at its heart about recognizing the significance of birth. The significance of birth for the baby being born, for the woman being born as mother, for the partner becoming parent, and for the family formation. And human rights is an absolutely essential part of it. And it's human rights associated with quality of care. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been faced with one of the greatest incidents in human life in our memory, probably since the World War, and possibly with greater consequences than that. It's been both frightening, happened very rapidly, we didn't know very much about it, and it has, of course, taken life and altered our right to go out freely and many of the things that we expect about our life. And what I particularly liked about your presentation, Maria, was about thinking forward what we have learned. And one of the elements of the COVID-19 pandemic that I think we need to think about very, very carefully has been the necessity for social distancing. And that social distancing can in itself be dehumanizing, because actually as human beings, we rely on being close to each other, communicating with each other. And there's a huge physiological basis to love and the development of human relationship. So one of the things we need to think about as midwives and people running the maternity services, working within the maternity services, is really, is our response that we make to the risk of infection appropriate, and what would the impact be? And Maria talked about unintended consequences. what we're having to do really is to balance human rights, public health, and quality care. And what happened in the beginning, I think, was that practices were restricted. And now we're seeing an opening up and understanding, particularly where there are strong leaders of maternity services. We're seeing that home births are being restored, that women are having companions, that midwifery-led services are being maintained, and that women can have water births. And basically, women should be involved in making decisions about their care together with the midwife. And probably one of the most important things that a midwife can do at this time is to listen to women. But I'm also concerned about the human rights of midwives, because for midwives, it's been frightening. They've been under a lot of pressure. There is some worry about midwives and nurses and others working through the COVID-19 pandemic, that there might be traumatic experiences, and that there might be post-traumatic stress disorder or psychological problems following this experience. So what we have to balance is both the safety, of course, the safety of the woman and the baby and the family, but also the safety of the midwives and staff, maternity support workers and so on working with women. And actually what we need for that is the evidence. And we have a huge amount of evidence. And I've been working with a group of professors of midwifery. We're called the Professorial Advisory Group. We've been advising the Royal College of Midwives. We've been doing very rapid reviews of the evidence on issues such as well-being of midwives, protection of midwives, contact between mother and baby and breastfeeding, induction of labour and interventions, and a whole host of these rapid reviews. And what's really important, I think, is that we remember that the relationship between the mother and the baby and the family and the relationships within the family are absolutely essential at a time of huge anxiety, which can be really difficult for women, particularly if they're from Black and minority ethnic background, or have mental health problems, or have disabilities. And thinking about that relationship is absolutely critical. And we will, following this pandemic, it's likely that we're going to feel it for, I would say, at least another year or 2 years. And we're likely to have a recession following this, and we're likely to see increased poverty and deprivation and further marginalization. So this relationship is absolutely critical. And I would say that probably in addition to midwives listening to women, compassion, kindness, and respect are more important than ever. So if midwives are put in the situation that they can listen to women, get to know them, and work with respect and with compassion and kindness. And similarly, managers and those leading the maternity services need to listen to midwives and maternity support workers, everybody working in the maternity services, with compassion and respect. And this compassion and respect and working through relationship, I think, will be the thread which will lead to us emerging in a more humane way from this pandemic. And watching the press, watching people's responses to it, I'm concerned that we might actually hang on to changes that we've made that aren't helpful and not restore things that are really important. So, for example, I would highlight continuity of carer as being something that we need to keep and is really helpful during the COVID-19 pandemic. Community-based services, midwifery-led care, woman-centered individualized care, public health information and support, optimizing normal processes, avoiding unnecessary interventions, and promoting skin-to-skin and attachment, enabling women to breastfeed and supporting women's mental health needs. And we need to have a broader view of the evidence and the concept of safety. And I was really pleased to hear Maria focus on not only physical safety, but psychological safety. And these ideas are all contained in a recent publication in Midwifery, which was led by Mary Renfrew, and a number of us were involved in it, called Sustaining Quality Midwifery Care in a Pandemic and Beyond. And it's really thinking about how we manage care during the pandemic, how we get out of the pandemic, and looking to the future. And we have seen a number of good effects. For example, where women have limited visitors, they might be more likely to breastfeed. We've seen in some areas an increase in the home birth rate. So actually we've seen some good effects. And wherever we've seen that, it seems to me that there's a leadership that actually knows what the evidence is, knows the principles, understands human rights, but is able to be innovative, entrepreneurial, and keep some of these services going, and indeed to increase them. So just my final words on this. We are in danger through social distancing of becoming more distant from each other, of dehumanizing. But we're actually seeing this wonderful culture developing. I mean, we're all now at the moment in Zoom meetings, and we're getting quite used to that. And we have different ideas about things. So I think this communication between all of us is really important. And Sue, you sent me a list of resources that you've made available. And it's absolutely amazing how many resources have been created in the light of COVID. Sorry, that's my phone telling me that I've spoken for long enough. And we've actually been scientists, professionals, professional organizations, charities like Birthrights have been tremendously resourceful. And the amount of work that we've developed actually is quite exciting. So I'm not losing track of the fact that this pandemic is absolutely tragic, and responding to it has been very difficult indeed. But I think it's important now that we think, as hopefully we emerge from it, about what we want our future to be. And personally, I want our future to be more compassionate, more empathetic, and in the maternity services, for us to be clear that we're human rights based, that we use evidence, and we develop quality care. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching this video from the Maternity and Midwifery Forum. For more expert opinion and analysis, hit the button below to subscribe.